We are going over to look at the state of Pennsylvania. We saw a very interesting result and a very interesting race in the state of Pennsylvania. We saw a race for the state Supreme Court. This race wasn't going to decide the balance of the Supreme Court. It was going to be Democrat either way. But what this does do is pretty much confirm that the Democrats and the liberals will hold the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court until 2030.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And obviously this comes off the back of a lot of legal challenges related to civil rights, voting rights, abortion rights, labor rights. All these things are coming to a head, and state judiciaries, these elections have gotten more and more prominent over the years. It's really interesting. I mean, like now it's like a state Supreme Court race is coming up, whether it's in Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania, and the university campus kids are lining up out the door to vote now.
Yeah.
You know, they're really mobilized around these judicial races because it's become so much more prominent in our lives.
Yeah. People just understand. They've seen what the national Supreme Court does. So they see the kind of power that the state one's going to have as well.
Yeah. So Pennsylvania is interesting because they do elect their Supreme Court justices. Obviously, we don't elect Supreme Court justices naturally. They get appointed by the president. Some states, they get appointed by the governor. But Pennsylvania is one of the states where you vote them. And you don't just vote them. They're also partisan. They run as a Democrat and they run as a Republican to get on to the Supreme Court. So this is a very partisan election. And the results were interesting to me because McCaffery, the Democrat, was very, very pro-abortion rights. He was very, very pro-labor. Labor unions backed him very hard. The Republican tried to run to the center on abortion. She said that the abortion issue doesn't even matter because the state constitution protects abortion up to 24 weeks. So she kind of avoided the issue. Might have been a really good response, to be honest. It might not actually matter. If the state constitution says 24 weeks in the constitution, it might not matter how she feels.
True.
But it's a terrible look to not answer the question on an ad, right?
Yes.
So the way that the Democrats won this election is shocking to me. The Democrats kicked butt in the suburbs, Bucks County, Montgomery County, Allegheny County, obviously Philadelphia urban areas. They did great. But they didn't do great in the rural areas. And this is the first time in my lifetime that I can remember watching an election and a Democrat won Pennsylvania without winning Erie County in the northwest of the state. They did not win Erie County. And that's so interesting to me because Erie County of Pennsylvania is supposed to be the swing county. Whoever wins Erie wins Pennsylvania.
Really?
And the Democrats didn't win Erie, but they still won by 8 points.
Wow.
And that's just like that tells me two things. It tells me first that Republicans didn't show up to vote. A lot of these rural areas, these hardcore Trump, hardcore MAGA areas in these rural communities just didn't show up to vote in the same numbers that they would normally. Next thing, the Democrats kicked butt in the suburbs in a way that is showing that Republicans are not fixing their post-Trump suburban problem.
At least in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Because in New York, it's a different story. New York suburbs, super Republican yesterday. I mean, ridiculous. The entirety of Long Island is ruby red.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder where that's where the discrepancy lies there.
I think it's because of the notion like everyone is afraid of New York being this like crime hellhole.
Yeah.
Even though it's like not, you know. But this is my county back home, Suffolk County in New York. It elected a Republican as county commissioner for the first time in like 2 decades.
Wow.
You know, so there is definitely Republican momentum in New York, but Pennsylvania, where it's a swing state, more important on the national scale when we talk about national politics, right? Allegheny County, the Pittsburgh area, had more votes than the Philadelphia urban area, which blows my mind. Why is Pittsburgh netting Democrats more votes than Philadelphia? That means Democrats have a problem too. Democrats have a black turnout problem. And they need to solve that before the next presidential election.
Is it turnout or is it support?
No, it's turnout.
Okay.
The proportion is fine. It's like 87% Democrat, 13% Republican. That's fine.
Okay.
The margin is fine. Not the margin. That's not the right word for it. The proportions are fine. It's the margin that's the issue. It's not enough.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not netting enough votes, even if you're winning it by so much, because just not as many people are voting.
Okay.
And maybe this means that low propensity voters aren't coming out to these special and these off-year elections, and now the Democrat coalitions are more aligned to the frequent voter base, right? Democrat coalition has changed over the last 2 decades here. Democrats are now a little richer, a little more money, they're more suburban, they are more educated than ever, and that group of people are more likely to go vote than any other. And because the Democrats now have those guys woven into their big tent here, it makes them a lot more likely to win in these off-year elections.
Okay.
And they're not as reliant on these off-year elections on the black vote. They're not as reliant on the urban vote, on the poor vote. They're more reliant on the suburban vote for these off-year elections.
I see. Interesting.
That's the trend I'm seeing. If that's a good strategy, I don't know. I mean, what does it mean if Democrats become the party of the elite, high-propensity, college-educated voter and just more and more and more falls into this trap of looking like the out-of-touch elite coastal liberal?
It's not a good look.
It's not a good look.
But I'm okay with it as long as the values of the party don't change.
Right.
Right. The values of the party still certainly lie with the working class urban person.
Definitely much more than the Republican Party, that's for sure. And I just don't want, I just get nervous on those general election days. Are Democrats going to be caught by surprise? Because we see all these victories, and is it all a mirage until the low propensity voters come back to the polls and you haven't stuck your progress with them? That's just what makes me nervous.
I see.